Austerman from Norton, Kansas. I served in the 35th Infantry Division, Company L, 3rd Battalion, 134th Regiment. I enlisted in the Army when I was 17 years old. Took basic training at Fort Hood, Texas, in the engineers. And after that, after the Fort Hood, after basic, we was transferred to Fort George G. Meade, Maryland, and done some more training. I grew up after I got out of grade school, times were hard, and Dad, the other two brothers was left or gone, work another place, so I stayed around and helped Dad instead of going to high school. After that, well, we decided I'd join and had to get their permission to join. That's when I was 17. And they had to sign an affidavit, for me to join. None of them enlisted. Most of them went to high school. And of course then they were drafted later on, due to the large losses in Europe. They just had to have more men, so a lot of them kids, they was probably in their sophomore year, senior years. Some of them got drafted. Somebody had to serve. So I guess I just decided I'd enlist. In them days, we wasn't fighters. We were just trying to save America, help save America. Sam and I always, at East St. Louis, when we joined the 35th Division, we made a pact that we would never shoot a German in the back or shoot a German coming towards us unless he had a rifle. And we found out later on you never have a nightmare after that, because if you shoot somebody in the back, that's murder. We wasn't in the business of being murderers. We was in the business trying to save the USA. Roosevelt passed the WPA, Workers' Progress Administration, and then that's what saved most of the farms in Kansas, because of the feed and grains program and WPA. You had to furnish your own team and scraper, and Dad would get $40 a month. And of course he wasn't the only one. About every farmer around Normal, Kansas, or home did the same thing. And then of course later on they come out with a National Youth Administration, NYA, and of course that was for us kids. And I remember I was 14 years old and got to work at Noamo, helped build the Noamo, Kansas Hall with nothing but NYA kids. And we made $17 a month. We really thought we was millionaires, really. And of course that eventually ended too when we got done with the hall. But the WPA, Workers' Progress, they curbed and guttered most of the streets in Noamo too. That was under WPA project. And dams were built. Farmers built dams, got help. So what it done, it really saved the farming in northwest Kansas. Two good programs, and a lot of help was received. If most of the farmers would have went broke, they couldn't have paid their taxes. It wouldn't have been for the WPA. And there were jobs here in Norton too, for the boss jobs, in other words, staffing, stuff like that. And it was just a good program, period. I had been to Denver, I guess would be the largest. We would go through Denver and go to Grand Junction, Colorado to pick peaches when we was 13, 14 years old. And we would hitchhike from Grand Junction back to Denver. And then I know went to Denver, and there's some friends that lived at Fort Morgan, Colorado. And I come back from picking peaches one year, and I went up there and helped them put up hay. This was in August. And finally the rattlesnakes run me out. Every time they'd buck in a load of hay, they'd buck in a couple rattlesnakes, so I hitchhiked all the way home from Fort Morgan, which in them days is pretty easy to do. They picked you up, people. Wasn't all the crime and whatnot that's going on now. Well, I knew about it ever since 1939 when Hitler invaded Poland, just by reading newspapers and listening to the radio. And of course, two brothers in the Army, reading letters from them and whatnot. Brother Carl, he was 3 years older, and the oldest brother Rex would have been, he was born 17, so he would have been 8 years older. No, he went in the military in 1941, and Carl went in 42. No, never did. Think that we'd go to war over Germany, but of course then along come Pearl Harbor, and that changed everything. Scared, really was, and after I got on the train, got to visit, and there was some other draftees on there and enlistees, and when we got to Denver, and they put us on the trucks and took us to Fort Carson, and of course then on to Fort Hood, Texas, and that really waked me up. That's when things changed. You wasn't your own boss anymore. You was under orders from somebody else, and everything was different. And hundreds of GIs, every place you'd go was full of soldiers. No, I was there 13 weeks, basic. Had to run the obstacle course every morning. Get up at 5 o'clock and take a shower and do this and do that and eat at 7 and fall out at 8. And then we'd run the obstacle course, and then of course we'd take lessons in using TNT and stuff like that, ball shooting, rifle range, everything. Then we got down to camp, and I kind of enjoyed the basic training on engineering and building pontoon bridges. Life was altogether different once we left Norton, Kansas in November for induction in the Army. Well, it was different. I was trained to Wichita, and then I took a bus to come home with the folks for 10 days, and after that come to Norton and took a Rock Island rocket to Washington, D.C. for Fort George B. Meade, Maryland. Let's put it that way. But still, the old friends were still around, you know, and they still going to school. And it was different, no doubt about it. Took the train to New York. We went to what we called Camp Shanks at that point in time, and of course then we was there a couple of weeks probably, and then on to the pier, and then we heard stories about soldiers getting sick on the troop ships and stuff like that, and but after we got to the pier and seen the Queen Elizabeth, why, we knew we wouldn't get sick because it was big, big, big. Boarded the Queen Elizabeth. Thought, boy, this is great, but the bad part of it was it's 14 stories high, and every other night you got to sleep on the promenade deck or the A deck or the deck below that. Now, next night you had to go down 14 stories in a little old stateroom, and of course that one just about scare you to death due to the fact there wasn't no way out. You get claustrophobia. You never did get sick because the ship was so large that it would slowly go up and then slowly come back down rather than humping and gumping, in other words. Meals was good. Got fed twice a day is all. We didn't get any breakfast. I remember once in a while you might get a little raunchy stomach when you walked into the dining room from upstairs. It was a very large room, probably before the war. It was a great big entertainment center for the ship. But outside of that, the food was pretty good. And they had PXs on there. You could buy cigarettes and you could buy chocolate bars and stuff like that. If you stop to think about the work it took to get that ship ready to go and supply that many meals twice a day, and medicine and sick bay, and that was quite a feat. There had to be around 10,000 with her, which was, I guess, more or less stacked, you know. I remember coming home on the Queen Mary. Oh, they was really loaded there. And they could load more because they didn't have the equipment that they had when we went over. The ships, the Queen Elizabeth and Queen Mary could go 35 miles an hour, so there was no troop ships that could go that fast. There was no submarines that could go that fast. And evidently they had help from other sources of where the submarines were located, because then all at once the ship would go to the left so many minutes, and then straight, and then maybe right so many minutes, and then straighten out again. So that took an extra day from New York to Glasgow. Daylight, you know, we disembarked about 8 o'clock in the morning. Oh, a beautiful place. And England's a beautiful place, you know, also, and yeah, that was the largest town I've seen outside of New York, was Glasgow, Scotland. We went from Queen Elizabeth to train stations, and we built it overnight one night, and then got on a train, another train. There were so many trains going back and forth to London, they had to run a lot of them, so we stayed at one night at the train station, and then got on a train and went direct to Tent City outside of London, what we called Tent City, because that's where we were building. I found out after we crossed Omaha Beach that we were going to a repo depot, and of course we was there 2 or 3 days, and then one night they called us all in and said, "You're all in here going to the infantry," and they started out with A's, and I was one of the first ones called and said, "You're going to the 35th Division, Company L, 3rd Battalion." So that's when I really found out that I was in the infantry. And then they hand you an M1 rifle and a pack and blankets and whatnot, and you're in the infantry now. That was it. From then on, that's when I found out I was going to be in the infantry. I really wasn't surprised that we was going to be put in the infantry due to the fact they lost so many GIs at Omaha Beach. And the way we were training, and when they gave us the M1 rifles, we knew something was going on, but we really didn't know we was going to be in infantry until we got across the channel to a repo depot, and then where we went from there. That they was doing anything to get GIs, and they took Quartermaster Corps, they took Air Corps, replacement, they took about every GI that didn't belong to a unit ended up in the infantry. And they gave us an M1 rifle, never shot one, because we trained with carbines. And of course, after we left London, well, then we went across the channel to Omaha Beach. Yes. Yeah, well, I heard them from London themselves. You know, the people themselves in England. The people told us, GIs, what kind of atrocities was going on and what was happening to London, and of course we could see flashes of bombs that hit London at night, you know, but really couldn't tell what was going on. Yeah, we set out in Channel. I got on board a troop ship going from London to Omaha Beach, and we set out in the middle of the channel for about 2 or 3 days, just sat there waiting to dock and unload. We had to unload out into fairly deep waters due to the fact the ship was couldn't get too close to shore. So they loaded us in boats, and we went in small boats and landed on Omaha Beach, which is still looked like the day before yesterday as far as the junk and stuff that was around there. GIs, uniforms, everything was, not the GIs, but GI uniforms, and a lot of soldiers' boots and rifles yet and stuff, but just a real mess, Omaha. So we knew then that one of these days we was going to hit the line in the infantry. Well, we just had a hell of a mess. Just had to start walking out in the water. The water would be about waist deep, I guess, where they landed. And then walking up Omaha Beach was something else, looking at all the litter and what was there from the D-Day. And all the wounded and all the dead were taken up and gone, yeah. Just stuff that didn't matter. Old trucks, Jeeps, wrecked, blew up, they were still there. But outside of that, there wasn't no human life on Omaha Beach. How in the hell did I ever get into a mess like this? That was most of my thoughts. And I couldn't blame anybody except myself, so no use to think about it. Went to a repo depot, replacement depot. The Army called them, we called them repo depots, but actually the thing was replacement depot for soldiers waiting to be assigned to different units. That's where I met Sam, and when my name was called, there was a few others, but Sam was the next one. There was 5 of us that started out at Company L. Captain Burgundy, he was a Jew, and a young kid by the name of Lemieux, and Sergeant Pettit, and Dale Klein, and myself. And we all went all through the war together. We'd all been hit in the hospital, but we all come home on the Queen Mary. 5 of us out of 1,400. Because the company turned over 7 times, and so it's been around. And of course, then you step back, and the sergeant tell you, well, said, you're in Company L Infantry now, so said we'll be leaving here whenever we can get a truck to take you to the 35th Division. Must have been fate. It was the first time we got hit was Thanksgiving Day in 1944. Had a big Thanksgiving dinner, and kitchen cook, he fixed turkey and dressing, had a hell of a meal, and jumped off about 5 o'clock to take a little town. And of course they started shelling us artillery, so I headed for a tree. And I got a tree under the tree, and I felt something go through my pack. Didn't think it was just like somebody tapped you on your back, in other words. And old Sam, he was running for the tree, and he got shot in his 4 buttocks, and then turned him around and knocked him down, and thought, my God, they killed Sam. So it acted just like he died, the way he just made about 2 turns and fell flat. And pretty soon I looked up and said, what the hell happened? I said, I thought they killed you, Sam. And said, I don't know what happened. And he didn't, until the blood started running down his leg and getting wet. Then he felt that his rear end, brought his hand around, and it was all blood. About that time I was spitting up blood, and every time I'd exhale, and then I knew there was something wrong with my lung. And come to find out, we had a tree burst, and the shrapnel come straight down, went through my pack, and the whole works, and went into my lung. But I didn't even feel it. I didn't feel it go in my lung at all. It too wound up, I guess. We finally got to the hospital after the medic come along and put a rag around Sam's rear end and stuffed some kind of deal on my lung, right shoulder back there. And then he said, I gotta go over there and take care of those over there. They have they can't walk or anything, so he said there's a Jeep coming down and picked those up, and did. Jeep come down from the north and picked the 4 guys up, 2 on the front hood, 2 on the back, and got them all strapped in, and he told us when he left, said, I'll be back when I get to take care of the ones that can't walk. And so we just sat there and laid there and watched, and Jeep driver got in, started the Jeep and backed up, and his right rear tire, he had a teller mount, which was 13 pounds of TNT, and blew the Jeep into the air, probably 6-8 feet, turned it over and killed all 5 of them, the 4 wounded and the driver, and Sam and I just sat there and cried. I don't know how much, probably 10, 12 days, something like that. And the doctor said your wound's healing good, he said. But there's Frank's hole, Sam's hole, they was pretty well covered up, and so we went back to the front. And wasn't very damn long we was back in the hospital again. Sam got shot in the leg, and I got shot in the arm on some little town we was taking. Just a flesh wound, wasn't lucky enough to hit a leg bone or arm bone. That's what we was wishing for. See if he hit. That never did happen. We just got flesh wounds. We was back there about 2 days, and doctor said, now you 2 guys have been hit twice. And said, yeah, battle fatigue. And I remember I didn't put that in my notes. And said, no, don't think so. Well, I said, if you think you got battle fatigue, you got the right to go across the street and talk to that psychiatrist over there and tell him your story. So I remember Sam saying when we was walking over there, he said, how in the hell do you act crazy? And I said, that's pretty hard to do, Sam. Act crazy if you're not crazy. He said, we're not crazy. And anyway, I said, you go first. So he went in there, and he was in there about 5-6 minutes and come out, and of course the name was Henry, and my nickname they called me Hen. And said, it ain't gonna work, Hen. Just ain't gonna work. Said, I'll tell you when you come back out. So I went in, and the first thing he was shot picking, little old short second lieutenant, great big black glasses. He said, have you ever been abused by your mother? And I said, abused? I guess I never heard that word. And I didn't. Hell, I was 17, 18 years old. I didn't know what the hell abused meant. I said, what's abused? And said, well, slapped around by your mom and dad. I said, Mom never did, but Dad gave me a good whipping once, said his wheat field was on fire, and I said, I've never done that again. And you sure that's all he done to you? And I said, yeah. I said, why? Well, they said a lot of people have problems if they was abused as a child. I said, hell, I wasn't abused as a child. And he said, is that what the battle fatigue is abused and crazy? And he said, well, that's part of it. And I said, well, by that time I was so mad I could walk out. I said, I think you're the one that's crazy, Lieutenant, I'm leaving. And he said, well, you sure are. You're dismissed. You're going back to the front. And that ended that. And I guess Sam told him about the same thing, because we knew we could get by with it. Back to the company. And we loaded up in trucks and went to Bastogne, Belgium. That was in December by that time. So. Oh, shit. Snowing, 20 above zero. The black guy quartermaster corps done most of the driving, truck hauling. He stopped in the middle of nowhere along about midnight or sometime, don't know what time it was, and said, "This far as I go," said, "everybody out." Hell, we looked out and there wasn't nothing out there except trees and snow and blowing snow, and I said, "Well, where do we go from here?" He said, "That's your problem." I said, "I got to go back and get another load of troops." So he just turned around and went back, and that night I remember we tried to find something to build it in, didn't we? So we just took some twigs and built snowdrifts and got behind it. And of course, next night, while we was in some abandoned buildings, but it was outside of the bulge because the Germans was between us and the outskirts of Bastogne. That was our entrance into Bastogne, Belgium, or outskirts. See, the 101st Airborne Division was surrounded in Bastogne and surrounded by the Germans and couldn't get out. They run out of medicine, run out of food, and that one thing, they run out of cigarettes because we did too, and so that was the beginning of the Battle of Bastogne, or in the middle of it anyway. The Battle of the Bulge, and the reason they call it the Battle of the Bulge, it started out real narrow, and then the Germans took Bastogne, and then they surrounded Bastogne, which made it bigger. And what their actual event was to take Antwerp, Belgium, so they were set up there. We had absolutely no troops, no equipment, no nothing at Antwerp, and that's where they was going to launch invasion of England from Antwerp, Belgium. That's why they called it the Battle of the Bulge, because the longer it went, the bigger it got, and then just bulged out. The next few days after we tried to break the lines, couldn't do it. And we couldn't get no air support, so what we was doing, we just more or less, most of the commanders, infantry commanders, said, "Hell, all we're doing is committing suicide going out there because we don't have no backup. We don't have no artillery or anything like that." And so they just kind of sat back and waited until the sun come out, and all hell broke loose. And first soldier I seen when we jumped off for the first time, don't remember where, don't remember when, but this soldier was evidently by the tree, and he got knocked down and sitting just like he was sitting down leaning up against a tree, but everything was going from the top of his eyes to the back of his head, and his eyes and cheeks and everything was still there, but his brains and everything that was on one of the first battles I was in. We walked down to Malmedy, and that was about 6 miles south of Bastogne. When we was going by walking, we could see these humps to the right of us, and we snowed the night before, and we just thought these tree stumps, But it turned out when we got to Malmedy that was GIs that the Germans took prisoners and lined them up in platoon formations and then killed them all with machine guns. And there's I think 3 or 4 of them played dead, I guess, under their buddies, and made it to the woods and back to Malvern that night. They killed 189 GIs. I think it was first week of January that the sun come out and shined for one day, bright and shiny. And there was hundreds of fighters and P-47 jumbo jets carrying medicine, food, supplies, guns, whatnot, dropping it right into the 101st Airborne Division in Bastogne. And of course, strafing railroad where the Germans were on the outskirts of Bastogne. And by that night, that was just about the end of the Battle of the Bulge, because then old General Patton, everybody heard about General Patton with his 2 pearl-handled revolvers. He was on the 2nd tank coming in from the southwest to Bastogne, and he caught a lot of flack over that from the other generals, I guess, but he was on the 2nd tank. We couldn't hardly believe that, but he was. And yeah, he's crazy for fighting. He was what you call a battlefield general. That's what he wanted to be. He wanted to fight. And of course, he's buried over in Luxembourg now, and I think outside of where my mom was born, right north of Grossberg, Luxembourg is where General Patton's buried. He's crazy for fighting. He just didn't think he'd get killed, and I guess he didn't. He died in a Jeep accident after the war, when he died from. So started east to Cologne, Germany. And the next big battle was going to be Cologne, but it turned out it wasn't. We were somewhere down south, I know. We got in some trucks, went back north, and was sitting in some little old town waiting. We had to walk 14 miles, I remember that, to get to the west of the Rhine River, banks of the west of the Rhine River. And we got there, and the English were building a pontoon bridge across the river, and there was fighters fighting up above us, B-17 dropping bombs. And they dropped some at night too. And I know we were sitting there on our west side of the Rhine River, and the GIs were getting hit in the legs, with flak, damn much flak in there, just falling down, hitting. So we stood up most of the time. That cut our chances of getting hit. You had that much to get hit where you could shrink it like that, see. So remember, we stood up a lot of the night. And at 6 o'clock in the morning, we had our K ration, and thought we was going to have one hell of a battle. And L Company, when we hit the banks west of the east, on the east side of the Rhine River, first thing we hit was the Cologne Cathedral, which is probably from here to the highway, east of the, probably wasn't that far. Had very little resistance. Walked up the banks and walked up to this cathedral and looked at it, and the Twin Towers were still standing there. There wasn't no windows broke in it, but everything within 30 feet of that cathedral was smashed. Everything, sidewalks, entranceways, like but the cathedral wasn't a glass broken, Captain Bergandy, we called him Dad, after 6, 7 months on the line with somebody, you forget all that sir and yes sir and all that crap. And I said, that's got to be a miracle, Captain. He said, I believe you're right. I said, what do you think, Sam? Sam said, it's got to be a miracle. So we all shook hands, and it was a miracle. The good Lord stepped in and protected that cathedral. And they said, we had another miracle. Said, this is one time a Jew agrees with a Catholic and a Protestant. And he said, that's the second miracle. He said, there won't be any more miracles. Because we'd argue religion at night sometimes, and I don't believe in what you Jews do, and the Jew daddy say, I don't believe in what you Catholics do either. You'll confess to another human being. And Sam says, got you all beat. I don't even go to church. I'm just Protestant. But we're all good that the good Lord protected the. Well, I told Sam, said, let's go ahead and we'll say Hail Mary. And he said, what's a Hail Mary? And I said, just follow me. So we went in the cathedral, and I said the Hail Mary, and he kneeled down with me, and that was our deal at the cathedral. Yeah, I and Sam one day, or Sam and I, we took a town. We wasn't very far from the Elbe River, if I remember right. And of course, we was going to meet the Russians at the Elbe River, so it had to have been in late June, sometime. Anyway, that don't make any difference. We took this little town, and over in Germany, the farmsteads, you walk out of the kitchen, you walk right into the barn. It was that clean, just as clean as kitchen. And so we built there one night, and the Germans civilians were good to us. Hell, they gave us food to eat and whatnot. And so we went up and said, you go up and sleep in the hayloft. So Sam and I went up in the hayloft, and we was looking out the east window. And here come this German soldier out of the woods from the south, and he was going along the side of the woods heading for the east, which is some more woods. And Sam said, let's have some fun with him. Said, you shoot left and I'll shoot right, and we'll see what he does. So we started shooting him. Wasn't shooting at him, we shooting ahead of him all the time. So he'd fall down, he'd get down, or drop down, and then get up and run to the right. Shoot to the right of him, he'd drop down, and then he'd get up and run to the left. And the poor guy got to a point where he couldn't even hardly get up. Looked like maybe we'd have shot him, but hell, he was just out of wind, I guess. And after a while, he finally got up and took off running to the east, so we let him go. That was one of the more humorous sides of the day. Sam and I were walking on the side of a rock fence over there in Germany. Had the rock fences. Instead of barbed wire, they'd build a rock fence about 5 foot tall, about 2.5, 3 foot thick. And we heard this fighter coming, and we looked to the south, and here come this damn fighter plane. And he headed down towards us, and I said, he's gonna strafe us, Sam. So we jumped over the fence to the north side. And he did. He strafed us. And said, next time he comes around, said, let's get on the south side of the fence and we'll shoot some bullets in his engine. See if we can kill his engine. And we did. He done that 2 or 3 times. And pretty soon, about the fourth, fifth time when he come from the south going north, why, the old prop was standing straight up, and of course his guns wouldn't work or anything like that with no power, you know. And he landed probably from here to State Street from us, just cleared probably wasn't that far. We run over and like GIs will do, called him everything in the book. He was sitting in his plane yet when we got there, and we stood behind him. I was on one side and Sam was on the other, and rifles pointed at him, and finally he stood up with his hands up. And Sam motioned for him to get down on the wing, and he got on the wing, and I remember the first thing he said, "Boy, you guys sure know how to cuss." And he could talk fluent English. He was 21 years old. He said, "The war's over for me." He said, "You got any cigarettes?" And I said, "Oh yeah, we got cigarettes." And said, "What do you got in that plane?" And I said, "I got a pistol and a camera that took pictures of you during the Battle of the Bulge." So we got those, and he was 21 years old. And the time we got back to headquarters with him, you took his uniform off, you'd never knew him from American. And we told him, said, can't hardly believe about dropped dead when he said, "Boy, you guys sure know how to cuss." And he said, "Well, I know all the slang." He said, "I can tell you won the World Series last year." He knew all that, you know, which we didn't. So that was pretty good. That was kind of humorous. He was walking between us, and he said, "I'm glad the war's over for me. So I don't have to worry about it." He said, "We was forced to take 6 months of English training every day, and took a year to learn how to fly, and fly good." And he said, "We was forced to do that. Hitler made us do that. We couldn't." Oh, okay. So we couldn't get out of that. But he said, "Now," he said, "we know you got good concentration camps or prison camps, and we know we get plenty to eat and plenty to smoke. And if you took his uniform off, you couldn't have told him from an American GI. Of course, when we got to Elbe River, we were just sitting there waiting for the Germans to come across, because the Russians would shoot them in the back or shoot them, so they'd surrender to us. But once in a while, one would take off and try to get back and go west into where the line was, back into Germany, you know. And so I said, "You got to go out and watch these fellas." And so I told Sam when I walked out, I said, "I ain't going anywhere. So we're going to go out on the west side of that road and sit there and do nothing." I said, "Hell, the war's over. We're still alive. Might have a German that would be teed off with something and shoot us." And while we sitting there, of course, there were trucks coming from the north, and of course, I told Sam, I said, "Hell, I got a brother in that outfit, 30th Infantry Division, 118th Field Artillery Battery A." And I said, "Let's stop him." So we went out and tried to stop the truck. He didn't want to stop, due to the fact that we hadn't raised our rifles, and thought maybe this was another cover-up like it was at Bastogne. couple Germans with GI clothes on. So we took the damn rifle and laid them down alongside the road, and I jumped on the next truck. Asked him if anybody knew Rex Austerman. Said, oh yeah, he's about 3 trucks back. And sure enough, that was my brother. And so I hollered at Dad when we went and got him. Said, I need a pass. Said, my brother's out in one of those trucks. Oh, he said, it can't be. And I said, yes, it is. And so he come out and he wrote me out a pass. And so I went with Rexy to Mageburg, Germany. And I remember we built it in a strawberry warehouse, and we ate strawberries like they was going out of style. And they took me back to Company L 3 days later, and war wasn't over in Japan yet, but it was over in Europe. And we were supposed to have a 30-day delay en route in the United States, and then head for Frisco, and then land on Japan mainland. I told Sam, I said, well, we'll never make it. I said, we lived through this, and we'll never ever come back if we go to Japan. Just what we read in Stars and Stripes. You know, they were hellish fighters, I guess. So we knew that. And you knew we'd had landing like the Omaha Beach or something like that on the shores of Japan. So we just knew in our hearts we wouldn't be back, period. And so anyway, Truman dropped the bomb, and we didn't even know that. I asked Captain McGann, he said, well, how in the hell are they going to destroy a whole town? Because that's what he told the Japanese, that we're going to destroy one town. And they said it must be going to get about 100 bombers together and just bomb them to death. But it turned out it was the atomic bomb, you know, so. Of course, about a week or so later, in early August, I forget when it was, well, then Truman dropped the bomb, and that ended the war. And so then we was on our way home. Oh, that's just like Cologne, Germany. We went back there in '83, retraced my steps. And how you couldn't tell there's ever a bomb dropped around that Cologne Cathedral. Everything, McDonald's up the street, a couple blocks, and just like there'd never been a war. Got back home out of discharge. It's 2 years today that I enlisted. Well, it looked a lot better than what we'd been seeing, and glad to be there, and lucky to be there. Really don't know how we made it, but 5 of us made it all through the, what time we was online. I was online probably 6 to 8 months, and in the hospital probably a month or so at a time. But how we done that, I don't know. It's you know, we never talked much about the war until the 50th anniversary. I never talked hardly to anybody about the war until the 50th anniversary. Everybody started talking. Veach and I talked about when we was flying together around engineering projects and stuff, but I don't know. Well, kids hardly didn't even know I was in the war. Never, just didn't talk about it. Nobody talked about it for some reason. And I never really talked about it or opened up or wrote in a letter until 50th anniversary. And I got to thinking now, I should be doing something because I'm going to be dead one of these days, and nobody will even know we had a World War II. So I think that's when about everybody started talking about World War II. Say, if it's a genuine number one threat to the America, to the United States, then they better get with it and help fight for it. That's what I would say. Now, for these being policemen in all the foreign countries, I don't buy that. We got enough problems right here at home. We're not taking care of them. We're taking care of the foreign countries. So, but I would tell any high school kid that if it's a direct threat and you know it's going to be either exist or coexist or not exist, then you better step up and do something about it.